Deion Sanders cast a long shadow over football, and now his son Shedeur Sanders is stepping directly into it. But the reactions lighting up social media this Christmas weren't about the father. They were about the son. What started as a moment of family legacy has become something far more personal for fans. Shedeur's jersey, gifted to kids, teens, and longtime fans alike, triggered tears and awe, not for what he's already done, but for what he represents.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
It's a striking example of how the torch of legacy doesn't just pass within families. It ignites across generations of fans hungry for a new kind of sports hero. What's unfolding here is bigger than a name on a jersey. Shedeur Sanders stands at the intersection of expectation and expression, forging a path that could either redefine or collapse under its own hype. The jersey isn't just merchandise. It's a symbol of belief, of swagger, of the complicated desire to see someone make their own mark despite everything tied to their last name. And that emotional investment cuts both ways. It energizes fans, but loads a player with pressure most never face so early. Whether Sanders can meet this moment or be consumed by it is the central question now driving his story. Shedeur Sanders jerseys didn't just sell out. They triggered a wave of reactions so intense, they took over Christmas morning. Viral videos flooded social media, showing fans crying, screaming, and hugging their jerseys like they just won the lottery. It wasn't about the fabric. It was about what that name across the back meant. And it hit differently. This wasn't just a fan base celebrating another rising QB. This was something else. Grown men were getting emotional. Kids were treating the jersey like it was a piece of history. And for a lot of people, it wasn't just team loyalty. It was personal identity. Wearing that jersey felt like a declaration of something deeper. Belief, confidence, even rebellion. What's wild is how quickly it all escalated. Shedeur, still early in his NFL career, suddenly became the face of something bigger than the sport. Not because of an MVP season or a last-second playoff win, but because people were projecting their own values onto him. Confidence, swagger, individuality. It all fed into a narrative that blew up overnight. And it split fans down the middle. Some praised him for his unapologetic energy. They saw leadership. They saw someone unafraid to challenge old-school traditions. But others weren't having it. To them, the attention felt premature. The confidence looked like cockiness. And the jersey became a symbol of everything they thought was wrong with modern sports culture. As the jerseys went viral, so did the conversation. On one side, those who saw Shedeur as a cultural shift, someone redefining what it means to be a quarterback in today's NFL. On the other, critics who said the hype machine had gone off the rails. Social media turned the debate into a full-blown spectacle. Supporters argued that Shedeur was bringing authenticity back to the game, that his confidence wasn't just performative, it was earned. Critics clapped back, claiming he hadn't done enough on the field to justify the noise. But no matter what side you were on, one thing was obvious. The jersey had become more than gear. It was a battleground for identity, and the media frenzy wasn't just focused on the fans. Every move Shedeur made was under a microscope. Every press conference became a referendum on whether he was ready for the spotlight or drowning in it. And every quote was parsed for signs of arrogance, insecurity, or brilliance. He handled it with the same energy that sparked all this in the first place. Calm, direct, and entirely himself. He didn't dial back the confidence. He didn't apologize for the attention. He leaned into it. And that only fueled the fire. To some, that was proof of leadership. To others, it was gasoline on a cultural bonfire. Of course, the legacy conversation never stayed quiet for long. Being the son of Deion Sanders brings expectations that are hard to escape. Shedeur isn't just being measured against his peers. He's being measured against a hall of famed shadow. Every touchdown, every mistake, every viral moment gets filtered through the lens of his father would've. And that legacy doesn't just shape media narratives. It shapes fan expectations too. People expect greatness immediately. They expect perfection. And when they don't get it, the backlash is twice as loud. The family name elevates him, but it also turns every game into a comparison test. Is he his own player, or just the sequel to a legend? As more fans got their hands on the jersey, the emotional stakes only got higher. This wasn't just about liking a player, it was about attaching your beliefs to a symbol. Wearing the jersey became a statement. And suddenly, Shedeur wasn't just an athlete. He was a personality brand. And that comes with consequences. Because now, every highlight play gets treated like proof of greatness. And every interception gets spun into a character flaw. The fandom swings between worship and disappointment with zero middle ground. When the story moves faster than the stats, every narrative becomes extreme. The pressure to keep up with the hype isn't theoretical. It plays out every time he steps onto the field. Training camp footage becomes internet discourse. A missed throw in practice? That's a debate about his mechanics. A deep pass on target? Suddenly, he's a franchise savior. The demand for perfection is relentless. And it's not just about football anymore. People expect him to represent something, to perform not just as a quarterback, but as a symbol of authenticity, of change, of whatever narrative they've decided to attach to his name. And the weight of those expectations? It's crushing if you're not built for it. That's where things start to get uncomfortable. Because when the attention gets this loud, the human side starts to fade. The jersey becomes the story. The brand becomes the focus. And the person wearing it? Easy to lose in the noise. When Shedeur got banged up or sidelined during games, the conversation didn't slow down, it got worse. Critics accused him of being fragile. Fans panicked about the future. Online discourse spiraled into overreactions. And once again, the conversation moved faster than reality. The expectation wasn't just to heal, it was to come back better, faster, and with even more to prove. And through all of it, Shedeur kept showing up. Whether it was interviews, media scrums, or social content, he stayed in control of his narrative. He didn't let the pressure define him. And he didn't try to be anything other than himself. That authenticity is part of what draws people to them. In an era where athletes are constantly media trained and brand optimized, Shedeur's refusal to water himself down is what makes the jersey feel meaningful. It's not just his name on the back. It's his personality stitched into the fabric. But now comes the question no one can avoid. Is this momentum sustainable? The emotional attachment fans have is real. But so is the pressure. And when the story starts to outweigh the substance, that's when cracks can form. There's no denying that Shedeur's rise represents a shift in sports culture. Fans are no longer just loyal to teams, they're loyal to individuals. Stories matter more than stats. Personalities matter more than playbooks. And Shedeur is at the center of that evolution. The jersey reactions, the online debates, the legacy comparisons, it all points to a new kind of fandom. One where wins and losses aren't just scoreboard results. They feel personal. The question now isn't whether Shedeur Sanders matters. That's already clear. The question is whether he can carry the weight of meaning people have attached to him. Because the hype doesn't slow down. The expectations don't shrink. And when you become a symbol, the scrutiny never ends. If you've been watching all this unfold with wide eyes and a raised eyebrow, you're not alone. This whole saga says a lot about where sports culture is headed, and what happens when a jersey becomes a mirror people use to see themselves. Let us know what you think. Has the hype gone too far, or is Shedeur exactly what this new era of football needs? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit that like button if you're here for the ride. And don't forget to subscribe for more drama where sports and culture collide. Once the holidays passed and the jersey reactions kept racking up views, the pressure found a new home, right at the press podium. With reporters throwing layered questions and critics lurking in every comment section, Shedeur stood where a lot of athletes buckle. But he didn't flinch. He leaned into the moment like he always does. His tone never shifted from composed. But behind that calm, there was a sense of weight, like he understood the stakes. This wasn't just another media day. This was a performance, too. And how he carried himself here was going to feed into the next week's worth of takes. That's where Dion re-entered the picture, not physically, but always through implication. Fans and analysts can't help but hear Dion's voice echo through every Shedeur statement. When your father shaped sports culture, your silence becomes loaded. And your words? Doubly so. Dion, for all his charisma and intensity, also had his fair share of doubters during his career. And now, people are watching Shedeur to see if the son learned from the father, or if he'll trip over the same spotlight. Dion's legacy isn't a backdrop here. It's part of the fuel that's keeping this hype engine running on full throttle. Then came the montages. Social media blew up with highlight reels, slow-motion throws, locker room footage, and sideline energy clips. It was Shedeur everywhere, all the time. The NFL wasn't just watching, it was showcasing. The branding around him swelled until it started to feel like a campaign. And with that came new questions. Had he earned this level of attention yet? Was the skill set worthy of the status? Or was this all the result of a sports culture that's obsessed with icons before they're even built? For his supporters, the answer was easy. He was doing something different. Something that felt authentic. For critics, it felt hollow. All sizzle, not enough steak. Back in practice, the cycle didn't let up. Every video from the training facility got dissected. A crisp throw? That's leadership. A missed read? He's not ready. Even off-the-field moments, like how he interacted with teammates or how he carried himself walking onto the field, turned into content. It's the new reality of being a young star in the NFL. You're not just evaluated on game day. You're evaluated constantly. And when your jersey becomes a national symbol of confidence, people want to see that confidence backed up in every rep, every drill, every moment. One slip, and it's a trending topic. The risks of that intensity became obvious the moment something didn't go to plan. A minor injury? Suddenly, it wasn't just about recovery. It was about narrative collapse. Was he built for the league? Did the spotlight get too bright too fast? Those weren't fair questions, but they came hard and fast. Even on the sideline, with a towel draped over his shoulders, the focus stayed locked on him. Commentators speculated. Fans spiraled. And those same people who had cried over a jersey just weeks earlier were now debating whether it all came too soon. The stakes weren't just high, they were personal for everyone watching. Still, he kept talking. In interviews, in short clips, through his presence, Shedeur never backed off from the story forming around him. If anything, he clarified it. He never acted like someone caught in a storm. He acted like someone directing it. But even that approach became polarizing. Some admired it. They saw control, confidence, poise. Others thought it came off as overly polished, even rehearsed. It's the burden of charisma. People either follow it or question what's underneath it. And every new sit-down brought more emotional weight. Reporters started framing questions not around football technique, but around the pressure itself. Could he sustain this level of scrutiny? Did he feel the weight of his name? Was the reaction to his jersey surreal? His responses? Measured, grounded, but firm. He acknowledged the noise without feeding it. He emphasized the work without dismissing the moment. And somehow, he managed to stay honest without becoming vulnerable bait for the next wave of headlines. But even honesty has limits when the narrative around you is spiraling this fast. Every word from Shedeur's mouth added fuel, whether he intended it to or not. Because once you become the face of something, even neutrality becomes a stance. That's the reality he's living in now. A world where every press conference is both a message to fans and a trap set by skeptics. And no matter how carefully he walks that line, there's always someone ready to call it an act, or a calculated play, or a mask. Back on the legacy front, Dion's influence remained a loud undercurrent. The comparisons didn't stop, they intensified. Shedeur couldn't just succeed. He had to succeed on his own terms, while still living up to the Sanders name. That contradiction is at the core of everything he's facing. Because the praise isn't just praise, it's often backhanded. He's good, but not like Dion. He's flashy, but not as dominant. Even when Shedeur proves himself, there's a ghost of a greater expectation looming behind every play. And that ghost wears gold chains and a Hall of Fame jacket. Now, the conversation is shifting again. With the regular season underway and more tape to dissect, people are moving from emotion to evaluation. But that emotional foundation hasn't gone away. In fact, it's only intensified the scrutiny. If he wins, it's validation. If he stumbles, it's overexposure. And that binary thinking? It's what makes this situation so volatile. Because it's no longer just about performance, it's about perception. And perception, especially in the age of virality, is a currency more valuable than stats. And maybe that's the bigger picture here. Shedeur Sanders isn't just a quarterback. He's the lens through which we're all watching a shift happen, where fandom isn't just loyalty, it's identity. Where athletes aren't just players, they're brands. Where a jersey isn't just a jersey, it's a symbol of who you are and what you believe. There's no neat bow to tie on this story yet, because it's not done, not even close. The jerseys will keep selling. The clips will keep circulating. And Shedeur? He'll keep walking the tightrope between legacy and individuality, hype and humility, expectation and reality. As more of Shedeur's highlights made the rounds, it became clear that this wasn't just a moment, it was a movement. But the bigger the movement, the harder the expectations crash when reality hits. Every spin move, every clutch pass, every small mistake was dissected not just by fans, but by people who had never cared about the sport until now. That's the impact of becoming a symbol. His jersey didn't just launch a new wave of fandom. It shifted who the fans were. They weren't all long-time football diehards. Some were drawn in by his presence, his backstory, the personality that bled through every frame of footage. And now, every week, those fans are watching to see if the story continues, or if the hype train runs out of steam. When the cameras weren't rolling on game day, they were focused on practice. Clips of him training, throwing routes, reviewing plays, working on footwork, became just as viral as in-game moments. People weren't just interested in results. They were watching the process, hoping to spot something, anything, that confirmed what they believed. Supporters zoomed in on footwork precision, crisp spiral throws, confident command of teammates. Critics looked for hesitation, for signs of immaturity or inconsistency. It was like the entire sports community turned into amateur scouts, all because one player had become the face of a cultural pivot. Then came the games where he didn't play or didn't finish. That's when things got especially loud. When Shedeur was on the sideline, it wasn't just quiet time. It was chaos. Commentary around him didn't take a break. It got sharper. Some said he needed to be protected more. Others said the moment was exposing him. But most were just projecting. When someone becomes a mirror for public emotion, every absence becomes a crisis. His presence calmed people. His absence turned into content. And that's what makes this so different from any normal rookie season. He kept his message consistent. Stay focused. Keep building. Stay true. It sounds simple, but in the environment swirling around him, staying consistent became its own kind of rebellion. Especially when so many people were waiting for a misstep. And yet, that consistency also irritated some. They wanted drama. They wanted either a collapse or a breakout. Not this steady walk through chaos. But that's what made Shedeur's presence so compelling. He didn't match the noise level. He kept playing chess while everyone else was yelling about checkers. The interviews kept coming, and each one peeled back the same question. Who is Shedeur Sanders without the lights, the name, the narrative? It wasn't easy to get to that answer. Not because he was dodging it, but because most people weren't actually asking. They weren't listening. They were projecting. One camp insisted he was the next big thing, a culture shifter. The other called him a media creation. But neither group was really tuned into the guy sitting there, trying to focus on game tape and team dynamics, while the internet spun bigger and louder headlines around it. Even after solid performances, press conferences were more about vibes than stats. Reporters asked about pressure, about brand building, about identity. Less about game plans. More about mythology. And Shedeur, whether he knew it or not, had become fluent in that language. He knew how to handle the framing. He never downplayed his confidence, but he also never oversold his greatness. He walked that tightrope with precision. But it was impossible not to notice the fatigue. He wasn't cracking, but he was carrying a lot. Every time Dion spoke, it added another layer. He wasn't just a father anymore. He was a hype man, a critic, a protector, and a constant reference point. And that made it harder for Shedeur to exist as just himself. The family shadow wasn't shrinking, it was growing. People weren't just comparing play style. They were comparing attitude, leadership, even interviews. And Dion's legendary flair made Shedeur's more grounded approach feel unfamiliar to some. Even when they were aligned, people looked for contrasts. Legacy has a way of erasing nuance. Shedeur started pushing back, not loudly, but with clarity. He made it known that he wasn't interested in being anyone's duplicate. Not his dad. Not the next face of a trend. Just himself. But in the world of viral fandom, that's a hard sell. The internet doesn't always want reality. It wants a headline, a thumbnail, a next big thing. And when someone doesn't play into that mold directly, it frustrates both sides of the conversation. But that resistance, that refusal to conform, is what's keeping this story alive. In another sit-down interview, he was asked whether he felt the weight of the attention. His answer was short. It's part of the job. But that answer carried more than it seemed. It was the clearest acknowledgement, yet, that he knows exactly what this is. He knows he's not being evaluated like everyone else. He knows that his jersey reactions, the social media firestorms, the legacy debates, they're all part of the same machine. And he's not trying to dismantle it. He's just trying to outlast. The latest photos told the story. Him on the field. Him on the sideline. Him leading a huddle. Not just a quarterback, but a lightning rod. Fans zoomed in on every detail. Cleats, posture, facial expression. Trying to read something more. Because now, it's not about what he does next season. It's about what he represents now. The Shedeur Sanders story has stopped being a timeline of games and started becoming a temperature check on where sports culture is heading. And whether you're rooting for him or waiting for him to stumble, you're participating in that shift. Because this isn't about one player anymore. It's about the fact that one jersey turned into a mirror for an entire generation of fans trying to find their place in a world where legacy, confidence, identity, and performance all bleed together. So what do you think? Is this hype too soon or right on time? Drop your thoughts below. Hit that like if you've been following this saga. And subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter in the culture shift that's turning games into global narratives.